The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon.
I have a dream today.
Change has come to America.
Believe me.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
Hey!
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
When is it time to talk about it? After Sandy Hook, when 26 lives were took, the politicians shook their heads and said we shouldn't talk about it. Our nation grieved. They gave their prayers and sent their tweets, but they didn't want to talk about it. We can't politicize this, they said. 20 kids are dead. We have to lay them to rest before we talk about it. Like it was honoring their deaths more to once again ignore the very reasons, but we didn't want to talk about it. And you could take the rhetoric and switch the tragedy. I couldn't tell the difference, which is obvious insanity, but I was just as culpable for what I didn't do or say, because honestly, it hurt too much. I didn't want to talk about it. Well, now I want to talk about it. Private guns have killed more Americans since 1960 than all of our wars combined. Now, personally, that's a statistic that completely blows my mind. Or what about the number of our gun-related homicides? It's higher than any other developed country by 20 times. And that's not only crimes, because on the average, roughly 33,000 people every year lose their lives. If that was terrorism, we would lose our minds. If that's not terrorism, we have lost our minds. In fact, maybe terrorism should be redefined, because mass shootings have become a sign of modern times. When do we draw the line? When do we grow a spine and stop using the Second Amendment to hide behind? You want to keep your guns, that's perfectly fine. I'm not arguing to take them away unless you're hunting lions. And yet the NRA accuses me of lying. Like secretly, I'm trying. That way they change the conversation from the people dying. It's really evil. I am tired of this misleading line they're feeding to the media. The talking points are really just excuses to be greedier. And Congress won't do their jobs because lobbyists have paid them off. So they ignore the problems that they're there to solve. Public service has a private interest when campaign contributions make them liable to the parties that contribute. It's a form of paying tribute, but the dollars make no sense. How can a background check be something that we're against? If the prevailing argument is it's about our mental health, then it's illogical to think that regulations wouldn't help. And while the left and right fight, both are dying in between. It's not the red, white, and blue. It's the red, white, and green. I can't take an open water bottle on a plane, but I can walk around Nevada with an AR-15. Can't you hear the children scream? Can't you hear the children scream? Can't you hear the children? Can't you hear them? Can't you hear them scream? You're on the wrong side of history. There is no in-between. When you look back in 20 years, tell me who you want to be. Can't you hear the children? Can't you hear them? Can't you hear them scream? It echoes through the halls of schools that were replaced by crime scenes. Can't you see the children? Can't you see them? Can't you see them bleed? Can't you see their parents seeing them in each and every dream? When the news vans have left and they're left with quiet streets and private grief, but they can't leave, they can't leave, they can't leave. So they count the seconds, minutes, hours, days, and nights and weeks, dealing with a pain so deep that it's awake inside of sleep. It's in their bones and in their smiles and in their hair and in their speech. And in the morning they remember tears streaming down their cheeks, chest heaving from the morning. It's impossible to breathe. And at that point, it doesn't matter what you once believed. We have let a special interest hold us hostage over greed, but it's in our hands, so why are we the ones that have to freeze? Don't move anything. Don't say anything. Don't do anything. Don't change anything.
His name is NQ, if you want to look him up. What could go wrong? We have a hate-filled country. We have crazy people, and we have easy access to guns. What could go wrong? What could go wrong? And the right wing just says, well, there's always going to be crazy people. And now that the violence is targeted to blacks and Latinos and Muslims and Jews, we're not supposed to say it's racial. because we'll always have crazy people. We have a president who stands there and, disparages in dehumanizing terms haggard hunter and housewives and their children, trying to make it to a better place, trying to get their kids into safety. He proclaims himself a nationalist, a president who proclaims himself a nationalist and separates babies from families. We have an enormous amount of gun violence in this country, from Parkland to Aurora, Dylan Roof going into a black church. I mean, we have voter suppression and violence and white nationalism. And I just want to tell you, this is just beginning. Democracy is literally hanging by a thread. You know why? Because we gave an inch. That's why. We gave an inch, and now they want a mile. We gave an inch. We stayed home. We stayed home in 2010. We stayed home in 2012. We stayed home in 2014. We stayed home in 2016. People didn't think that, this candidate was perfect enough, so they stayed home. They bought into, the suppression tactics. They believed what Russian trolls were, permeating all over our social media. And they stayed home. So we gave an inch. And now they want a mile. And that's why I'm telling you, this is just beginning. You have a president who, in the last, 72 hours, we have had a man try to get into an African-American church in Kentucky, an African-American church that had 70 people in it an hour and a half before he tried to get into that church. Because their services were over, the doors were then locked, and he couldn't get into that church. So he went to a grocery store and he killed a man named Maurice Stollard, who was with his grandson trying to buy some poster board for a school project in front of his grandson. He killed him. And then he went out into the parking lot and he killed Vicki Jones, a woman who was just trying to do her grocery shopping, both black. After that, we totally forgot about that, because then we started seeing mail bombs sent to people who had been criticized by the president. Everybody that the president had labeled disloyal or a traitor or un-American or somebody that was an enemy of his sent bombs, and they're not even done being delivered. Tom Steyer got one over the weekend, and Donald Trump tweeted at him after Donald Trump, the president of the United States, knew that Tom Steyer had received a bomb and called him, names in a tweet. Like stupid grade school names. And then on Saturday, a man shouting, "All Jews must die," opens fire at a Pittsburgh synagogue that houses actually 3 synagogues in it, killing 11 people and wounding 6, 4 of them police officers. How many more guns do we need? Police officers. 2 of them are in critical condition. And the president refuses to pivot. He refuses to adjust. He refuses to stop using the language of hatred and division. He refuses, and that's just a fact. He will not do it. And all these men in the last few hours that have done these things were all middle-aged white men who were bitter and disappointed and full of grievance. The guy who went into the Kroger store was 51 years old, a white man. The guy who sent the bombs was 56 years old. He didn't know what nationality. He thought he was an American Indian. He thought he was a Seminole Indian. It turns out he had an absent father who was Filipino and a mother who was Italian. And he thought of Trump as a stand-in daddy. Now, I've seen that. I've seen those people in those chat rooms. I've seen them. Right side media. They air every single Trump rally and they call him daddy. They literally call him daddy. And then the man that went into the synagogue was a 46-year-old white man, completely disaffected, a loner, a guy who had no friends, and lived in one of the friendliest, most awesome neighborhoods that they used to say, because, Mr. Rogers from TV, he actually grew up there. That is his neighborhood. This is what we've been living through for the last week and a day. This is sick. This is just so unbelievable. But, you know, we're always going to have crazy people, everybody. And remember, it was a false flag with those bombs, right? That wasn't real. And just because the president decided to announce that he is suddenly a nationalist, he's a nationalist, and steals language from the Limburgs. Yeah, Limburg and the Henry Ford anti-Semites and all those people dating back to World War I. The nationalist rhetoric he's just now adopted, and all of a sudden all hell breaks loose, doesn't mean that he's responsible for any of it, because we'll always have crazy people, and this is America, and everyone should have easy access to guns. Not to the ballot box. We have massive voter suppression going on in North Dakota against Native Americans and against white people who live in the burbs, in the exurbs, who don't have street addresses and can't get voter ID. Georgia, you had Jimmy Carter writing a letter today to Brian Kemp of Georgia saying, just recuse yourself from overseeing the election while you're on the ballot. What is so hard to do that? And he won't do it. We have voter suppression all over the place. We have voter suppression in Kansas. Same thing. Chris Kobach, Secretary of State, overseeing his own election. What could go wrong? Won't recuse himself. We have voter suppression everywhere. People can't even cast a ballot. There's so much hatred, and so much of it is obviously racial. But we're not supposed to say anything because, you know, it's equal on both sides. It's equal on both sides. Why? Because we yell at people at a restaurant? Oh, my God. Because we shun and shame people and tell them, what are you doing, sir? What are you doing? You're putting a Supreme Court justice in place who has women with 8 witnesses, another woman with 10 witnesses, and the FBI won't talk to them. The FBI won't talk to the candidate for the Supreme Court. Nothing will be done about this. And a woman has the temerity to say in an elevator to a sitting senator, you're putting somebody accused of molesting women on the bench. What are you doing, sir? Or somebody yells at Sarah Sanders and maybe she doesn't get her Cornish game hen. Or somebody yells at Ted Cruz and he doesn't get his, a taco bowl. This is the same as attempted murder. This is the same as murder. This is the same as physical assault. This is the same as saying you're a Proud Boy and your only reason for making this gang is to kill. It's the same as Richard Spencer saying Heil Trump. It's the same as saying, well, he's not alt-right enough, but at least he supports our views on everything from Jews to immigration to you name it. He's not exactly anti-Semitic enough, but he certainly hates Latinos and blacks. Look at my African American. Well, there's always going to be crazy people, and there are always going to be guns, and so what are you going to do about it? It's America. You know that the president, after this happened, went and did a rally in Murfreesboro, Illinois?
All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
I actually don't want to say this, but it's going to get worse. It's whatever happens next Tuesday, I think the divisions and the ugliness are going to get worse. You know, and in part it's because when you have a president of the United States who is comfortable in dividing us, when we have these tribes who have separated themselves into these silos, who are marinating in conspiracy theories, when you have these dark impulses that have been called forth by the president of the United States, they're not going to go away. We are living in a time that is not only dangerous, but without leadership, moral leadership from the one person. I mean, the president of the United States is distinctive in terms of the whataboutism. The president is uniquely capable of uniting us, but as we're finding out, the president is uniquely capable of dividing us. And one of the things that we are learning is that this country is not immune to history. This country is not immune to the hatreds that have torn apart other countries. And I think that's the one lesson is going forward, is to understand that we may be special, but we are not going to be exempt from what happens when a country summons the darkness, as the president has, I'm afraid, has done.
Summoned the darkness. This man appeals to the lowest common denominator, the bitterest, the most disenfranchised, the most dissatisfied, the most disappointed in their own lives. And he feeds them and feeds them and feeds them someone to blame, someone to take revenge on, someone to get even with, someone. Meanwhile, he's stealing. He's literally stealing from you. He's literally stealing from me. He's literally planning to steal the last tranches of big cash, the last tranches, which are pension funds from public employees, which are Social Security and Medicare, the trust funds, the disability payments, the EBT cards, all those things that we fund. All those things. He's going to convince people that they can't afford them anymore and to give them up and starve for him. This man is so dangerous, I can't even breathe. And the fact that when all of this happened, all of it, he kept on going to his rallies. He kept on going. He kept on showing up. He talked about winning after people were slaughtered. He talked about winning after people were sent bombs in the mail. He called Tom Steyer all kinds of names over the weekend, a crazed and stumbling lunatic who should be running out of money pretty soon. This is what he tweets. As bad as their field is, if Tom Steyer is running for president, the Dems will eat him alive. What kind of imagery is this? What kind of sick psychology is this? And people fall for it over and over and over again because they don't read newspapers. They watch an endless barrage of attacks on people that are not responsible for anything that is wrong with your life. This morning on Fox News, they were accusing the caravan, which is thousands of miles away, on foot, filled with women and children, of bringing diseases. I'm not kidding. Like an infestation. This is all code for hatred.
What about diseases? I mean, there's a reason why you can't bring a kid to school unless he's inoculated. You know, there's things that happen in this country. We already give 40 to 50% of our taxable income to the government for social programs. Is it too much to say that we just can't have countries, entire populations come in here without being looked at as hard-hearted? To me, it's a practical way of having a nation that everyone looks up to and wants to be a part of. That's part of the reason why America's America. There's a process.
Brian, if this is allowed to continue, the caravan into the United States, then the border is meaningless. Now, and I mean that. I mean, what's the point of a border? If we can't stop individual narco traffickers and human trafficking across our border when they come in small groups, and we can't stop them in large groups, then I'm asking a reasonable question. What's the point of the border? Yeah. You can't stop small groups. You can't stop large groups. What's the point? And what's fascinating here is whenever it comes to the topic of illegal immigration, do you ever notice it's only discussed by the left in terms of its effect on the people crossing the border illegally. Mm-hmm. It's almost never discussed on the effect illegal immigration has on border towns, border communities, the taxpayers in the United States in general. It's like our concerns are ignored, and we're only supposed to pay attention to the concerns of the people in the caravan.
Now, you know, I lived in West Texas, and I'm here to tell you that the people of places like Marfa, Texas, the people in places like El Paso, the people in places like Midland and Odessa, we all know that immigration is a plus. We all understand, everybody knows that they like being able to freely go back and forth from Mexico to Texas, back and forth from Mexico to Texas. And nobody there wants a stinking wall. Everybody there loves their shared heritage. Everybody there enjoys their neighbors. Now, I got to tell you, the shooter on Saturday was reacting to the caravan.
The shooter in Pittsburgh expressly said that the thing that he was angry about were the migrants heading toward the American border. A situation that has been demagogued by the president, that has been hyped up and demagogued by right-wing media, that is being talked about in these like existential terms. That this is going to destroy America if these people get here. And while, you know, of course, the president isn't responsible, et cetera, it's also the case that this guy was clearly imbibing that rhetoric. He clearly was, that was radicalizing him, and I think we should recognize the ways in which that kind of demagoguery radicalizes people.
You think? You think maybe something that Trump says actually empowers and emboldens and radicalizes people? Do you think? Because I think so. You know why I think so? Because I listen to them.
Hail Trump! Hail our people! Hail victory!
Our lived experience is being a young white person in 21st century America, seeing your identity be demeaned. I've lived in this multicultural mess my entire life, and I'm trying to get out of it.
Wife beater. You know he beats his wife. She just filed for divorce and says that he is so violent. He repeatedly beats her. Rob Porter is a wife beater, too. Donald Trump raped his first wife, and now he just manhandles women, grabs them, when they aren't, exactly welcoming. And, this is just the beginning. It truly is. We are literally at a turning point. This election, if for some reason there's enough voter suppression, or for some reason it's very close and this is a contested election and Trump throws it into the courts, they're going to see whether or not Kavanaugh was worth it. But if that actually happens, if that little test run is run, then it's time to start wondering whether or not you can stay, let alone raise children here.
We're going to have a short, sharp shock at some point in this country, and we're going to have to make a decision as a people, as a republic, whether or not we're going to continue as a Western democracy or whether we're going to slip into authoritarian statism. I think that, I've given up hoping that the Republican Party has any leadership inside of it that will ever check Donald Trump. But I hope that the tidal forces of American politics are going to bring some accountability to him in a few days, and I hope that at some point conservatives of good faith are going to say to themselves, we can't stick with this guy. The intangible outcomes of this are so horrifying that it's not worth the short-term executive orders and judges as the republic burns around this arsonist.
Dude, couldn't say it better myself. Everything this man touches dies. That's the name of Rick Wilson's book. That was Rick Wilson. Everything that Trump touches dies. And now he is all over, handsy, all over the United States of America. If everything he touches dies, and he's grabbing at us, and he's grabbing the votes, and he's grabbing people's ID, and he's grabbing people's ability to cast a ballot, tell me, is it going to die? Is it going to die? This is all this man knows. It's all he knows is how to bankrupt things, break things. He's like a tweaker, truly. And the only reason why he does what he does is because it benefits him. It certainly doesn't benefit this country. It doesn't benefit people who are desperate. It doesn't benefit people who don't understand why their lot in life is so poor. It doesn't benefit anybody to have a president like this. But it benefits him. And that's why he does it. A house divided cannot stand. That's as old as Abraham Lincoln. And this president knows that. And if it's chaotic here, and if it's falling apart here, and if people are at each other here, and we are so divided here, guess what he can do? In chaos, he can steal. And that's what it is. That's what it is. That's why he keeps saying, I am the least anti-Semitic person you know. It's because he doesn't care about anything. He doesn't care enough about anything. He only uses tactics that benefit him. So if anti-Semitism or look at my African American, or the caravan is full of diseases, and some Middle Easterners too, and you could really agitate, and you can cause violence, and you could set one upon the other, well, it's better for him that way. Because when the people are organized, when the people have a principled idea, whether or not they agree on how to execute it, but if the ideas are principled, and if the ideas are to make this a better place, and if the ideas are to make this a freer place, a more perfect union, then the people are coming. And he doesn't want the people to come. He's not interested in the people. The people are difficult. The people are going to put up a fight. The people are our only hope. And that's why people who speak to the people, the little people, like me, are not given platforms. Only people who will sit there and say diseases. They're bringing diseases. And there's nothing that can be done. It's a violent world. And Lou Dobbs, you know, they doubled down on this anti-Semitism to the point where literally Fox Business pulled Lou Dobbs' show. No, not the whole thing, just this one episode. Because this Chris Farrell from Judicial Watch, who is responsible for shepherding all these crazy, crazy things to the Supreme Court so that we lose our power and money becomes power, not the vote, not the people. Corporations become people and you become flotsam and jetsam. They pulled this because he was still going after George Soros, and his anti-Semitism was clearly understood.
This is a criminal involvement on the part of these leftist groups. It's highly organized, very elaborate, sophisticated operation. I have that from the highest levels of the Guatemalan government. They're investigating those groups criminally, and I strongly urge President Trump and Attorney General Sessions to do the same here. A lot of these folks also have affiliates who are getting money from the Soros-occupied State Department, and that is a very great concern. You want to start cutting money there.
Oh, my God. Okay, that was hair-raising, but I have to tell you, even Shepard Smith has had enough.
For years, Central Americans have been enduring extreme gang violence and poverty across entire nations. Sometimes they travel in caravans up toward the U.S. border to seek asylum, as they did back in April, or to raise awareness about their hardships. This particular caravan started in Honduras, and according to the reporting of the Daily Beast, it swelled in size from a few hundred to thousands after a local TV network in Honduras reported that a Honduran organizer was going to pay for everybody's food and transportation, because usually you have to pay a mule, and usually you have to pay exorbitant fees like $7,000 American dollars just to get your way on this walk. So Hondurans who wanted to leave thinking somebody was going to pay for it all just came running. The caravan headed through Guatemala with immigrants joining along the way and forced its way through a security fence at the Mexican border on Friday. The caravan tried to cross a bridge. Who can forget this picture? Into Mexico. But they ran into Mexican police with riot shields and pepper spray at the other end. So some of the migrants started jumping off the bridge so they could cross the river below. Some of them in rafts, some through waist-deep or waist-high water, some with their children and the injuries and all the rest. And remember, it's in the 90s and feels like it's 100. And since then, they've kept marching through the southern Mexican towns, tiny little towns on tiny little roads with very little infrastructure and not a lot of help. An LA Times reporter said the caravan was more than 2 miles long at one point, just the caravan itself, and that people near the back were stumbling in the extreme heat. Where have they been sleeping? Well, they sleep in the streets, the burning hot streets, wrapping themselves in blankets and pieces of plastic. An Associated Press reporter said there was a chorus of coughs this morning from migrants who appear to be developing respiratory problems, and they're doing it and continuing to walk because everything is so horrible at home. They're not coming to get anyone. They're seeking relief from their hell at home.
Period. And the man that went on cable television in Honduras, I told you his name is Bartolo Fuentes, and he is the leader of a party called the Libre Party, which stands for free. And he got on, he didn't pay anybody anything. He just told them that if they would all gather and go together, they would be able to pass without having to hire a $7,000 coyote or somebody, that they would have to pay. But that there was power in numbers and that they should meet. And they do this every year. Every year, there is nothing new about it, and the president is making it into some disease-spreading infestation, and there's Middle Eastern people sprinkled in, and anything and everything to get people, to shoot, to kill, to be violent against haggard Hondurans who are only trying to get away from these lunatic right-wing governments that steal from them. That's it. And then you've got Trump just catering to the alt-right. I mean, just giving them every clue, every little morsel that they can ingest to let them know that their kind of division and violence is welcome in America because it helps him. Not because he cares about their cause, not because he cares about America, not because he cares about anything. He only knows it serves his purpose, which is to divide and tear us apart so he can steal. And the Republicans, they are so quiet about it. It's gross.
What happens is they're in Mexico, they're going to have a baby, they move over here for a couple of days, they have the baby. No, but Bill, they're saying it's not going to hold up in court. Now it's going to have to be tested, but they say it's not going to hold up in court. Regardless, when people are illegally in the country, they have to go.
But you are not going to be able to deport people who have American citizenship now, and the federal courts will never allow mass deportations without due process for each and every one.
Yes. I don't think they have American citizenship, and if you speak to some very, very good lawyers, and I know some would disagree, but many of them agree with me, you're going to find they do not have American citizenship. We have to start a process where we take back our country.
You're an idiot.
You are an idiot. This is unbelievable. Okay, this is unbelievable. Oh my God, we've had a man who went in. He tried to get into a black church to kill African American parishioners, and of course services were over, so the doors were locked, and he wasn't able to do that. So he went to a Kroger and he killed a grandpa with his grandson who were trying to buy some poster board for a school project, and a woman out in the parking lot. Okay, the little grandbaby, this elementary school age kid watched his grandfather be shot for no reason except that he was black. And ran out into the parking lot screaming for help, to help Grandpa, help Grandpa. Okay, and then we had a crazy bomber who, everybody that Trump put on his hit list was on this crazy bomber's hit list. Of course, the guy thought that he was, Trump's son. He felt Trump was the daddy he never had, and he was going to do everything to make Trump, just adore him, went to Trump rallies, the whole 9 yards. We find out that the bombs were still appearing. The bombs were still showing up as late as yesterday at CNN Atlanta. Well, at the Atlanta post office, they intercepted it. It was on its way to CNN Atlanta. And we found out over the weekend that Tom Steyer, the billionaire, who still will not help me, Tom, I got a robocall from Tom Steyer. I tried to say, hello, could you support the show? Because I'm on your side and petitions ain't going to cut it, and you're a freaking billionaire, and I'm over here trying to sell hats and T-shirts to survive. Well, thank you, everybody who bought a T-shirt yesterday. Keep doing it. We need it. It's almost the first of the month, and you know how much it costs to run this show. It costs a hell of a lot. But that said, thank you for supporting the show yesterday. Please continue to do so. Look at this hat. This is such a, if I look good in hats, I'd wear the hat. This is such an awesome hat. I think this hat should replace the MAGA hat. On sale at randirhodes.com. Just go into the top and you'll see the little white button. It says merch, as in merchandise. You click on that and go to the store. However, we have all this going on, and then on top of it, okay, so Tom Steyer, the robocall, and I was like, hello, can you give me, some sort of a marketing budget? Because that would do it. That would freaking do it. Look what millions of dollars in marketing on freaking Facebook did to our presidency. You see what I mean there? So there's that. And then we have the president, we have a crazy, well, I hate to say these people are crazy. They're not crazy. Because the insanity defense will not play. And that's how you know they're not crazy. If they were crazy, insanity would be a complete defense, right? And they would go to some institute. No. These people are just full of hate and disappointment and resentment, and they are like little, kegs of gasoline, and Trump is the match. And he just sets them ablaze by feeding them this racial intolerance, this unbelievable us and them, this unbelievable others theory from their rapists, they're coming to get you, from globalists and George Soros, and these are the enemy of the people. The media is fake. They're lying to you. And people go, he didn't call all media fake, just some media fake. He's literally labeled CNN fake news. He has yelled at Jim Acosta. He has told you to look right there at all the news cameras from the major news organizations. Right there in the back of the room, he'll say, fake news, fake news, fake news. The only news he thinks isn't fake is the fake news, which is Fox News, that is making up even more incendiary crap. So we have Jews being attacked. We have Latinos being attacked. We have African Americans being attacked. We have, I can't even keep track of all the people that are being beaten and attacked and violently, and the president, now the New York Times is reporting that the president could not make a statement about the synagogue killings on his own. He just couldn't. He couldn't do it. He had no desire to make a statement of sympathy or empathy. No desire whatsoever. And it took Ivanka and Jared to craft a statement of outrage about the anti-Semitism after Saturday. And then he gave the statement and went right back into partisan mode and started blaming the media for the anger on his Twitter feed. And he went to all his rallies, didn't stop for a month. And now he wants to go to Pittsburgh today. He's actually in Pittsburgh today. And he's not welcome there. He's not welcome there. The mayor has said they don't have the security that they would need. And could you please let us bury our dead and then consult with the families who lost people or who are injured and wounded and ask them if they want you here. And he refused to do that. So he went to Pittsburgh anyway. And he went to Pittsburgh after over 50,000 people wrote a letter, an open letter to him, saying that he would not be welcome in their fair city until he denounced all of this racial animus, all of this ethnic dog whistling, all of this hatred. If he would stop spewing this bile, stop saying this one is a rapist and that one's here to invade and these people have diseases and those people are globalists and they control the media and they run Hollywood and they run the banks and this one over here, what do you have to lose? You're so, you're so down the totem pole of human beings that you have nothing to, and they said, unless you stop, please do not come here. And he went there anyway. 50,000 people from one city wrote an open letter saying, please do not come here. Please have a cleansing moment of moral clarity before you set foot into, and please let us bury our dead, because the focus here is on them, not you. And that just made him want to go there more. But oh no, it wasn't enough for him. He had to stoke more racial hostility. More. Now, that clip that I played to open the show is from 2015. And, I could go back and I could get a lot of the rallies that he loves. All this man knows how to do is campaign, which is a polite word for what he really does, which is con you. Okay? It's, not you, but he tries to con the people who are desperate, and are bitter, and are disappointed, and are grieving, for their own lot in life, right? He tries to exploit all those people by pointing to other people and saying, that's what you should. Don't look up at the people I gave the tax cut to. Don't look up at the rich people who I cater to. Don't look up at the, unbelievable amount of money that was just transferred from you to them. Don't look up, because you might find out we're peeing on you, and we don't want you to see that. Look down at the people below you. Look down at the people you think are beneath you. Look down at the people who you think are less than you. And thank God that as poor as you are, as ignorant as you might be, as lazy or as disabled or as, at least you're not them. And that's the whole thing here. So what does he do today? Today he takes that 2015 thing about, well, he used to call them anchor babies. Is what I'm saying. Go pull all the anchor baby clips. You remember he was calling them anchor babies. This was a derogatory term for people who come here and have children here, and their children are U.S. citizens. And Trump has been deporting a lot of the parents of those children. There are numbers of people who have given interviews that said that, the Border Patrol, not Border, but the ICE came and deported the parents, leaving behind 3 children. Or ICE came and deported the parents, and the parents had to make a decision which children could they afford to take back to a country they haven't lived in for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. Right? So now we're 1 week away, like literally a week from tonight, a week from today. 6 days, 14 hours, and 52 minutes. We will know whether or not these people kept power. And if they did, all bets are off. Truly, all bets are off. Civil war, you got it. It's going to happen. There's no question. They will be so emboldened by the message that white supremacists and haters are sending them if they keep the House and the Senate. If they don't, there's still a lame duck session we have to contend with. All the losers and all of the ones that got defeated, they're still going back for a lame duck session of Congress. Be very, very alert to that. So we've got Trump out there today trying to stoke the last heap on the racism, upon ethnic hatred, upon disdain, upon, pejorative words for others. And I don't even know who the others are. I mean, who are the others? Unless you're a Native American, you're an other. But he is now saying again, and this time he's doubling down. He's saying that, and I really want you to consider this. He's saying that with an executive order alone, he can strip the citizenship away from people who were born here if their parents were here without papers when they were born here. By executive order. Now, as you know, he's ginning up all this hostility about this caravan, which, by the way, has shrunk now. There's literally 3,500 haggard Hondurans in this caravan. 1,700 of them have applied for citizenship or applied for work permits in Mexico. And some of them have just given up and have resigned themselves to death. So there's about 3,500. Do you think in this nation that is so vast and wide, with 320 million people, there's room in this country to absorb another 3,000 people? Do you think that that's a threat to you? Or is the bigger threat a president of the United States who believes he can undo the 14th Amendment with a stroke of his pen? Which is the bigger threat to our democracy and our democratic experiment? Which is the greater threat to the republic? 3,500 malnourished, haggard, terrified people fleeing corrupt government, gang violence, corrupt police officers, people who steal their paychecks, people who are, poorer than dirt and are in very bad health, or a president who thinks that he can do away with any amendment he doesn't like by executive order. Just the fact that he thinks that should terrify you. But now he's saying it out loud. He was saying that you could undo the Constitution with legislation, which was also wrong. But now he's saying he doesn't even need that. He can do it by executive order.
All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
We have never had a president of the United States do what this president is doing. He is stoking a cold civil war in this country, and it has turned hot on the periphery. This man, Bowers, what he said was, when he went in, he said, I can't sit by and watch my people get slaughtered. Screw the optics, I'm going in. And he went in to kill Jews. The Jews he believed that were financing the caravan, the invading army, like a panzer division that is threatening the southern border, an army that is racked and riddled with disease. The same type of rhetoric, the same type of propaganda that you would have seen in Germany in 1938, the dehumanization, turning people into infested vermin. What Trump is doing is stoking and inciting, for the purposes of political power, the worst amongst us to take action in his name. We have a situation where, for the grace of God, the largest mass assassination attempt in American history was avoided that targeted amongst them 2 former presidents of the United States. Every one of those people was a target of Donald Trump's. And this man, a fanatic, was radicalized by Fox News, by talk radio, by a right-wing propaganda machine that is as sophisticated as it has turned deadly.
That's the truth. And that is what is going on in this country. There is a steady diet of propaganda that is being just waged on the American people. And I always was under the assumption that propaganda was illegal in the United States, but it isn't, obviously, because this is exactly the German playbook. This is exactly the kind of propaganda. I don't know, I played you yesterday a little clip of Fox News saying that these people from Honduras are coming here and they're riddled with disease, okay? They doubled down on this yesterday. They started naming diseases. They started saying that they're bringing polio and leprosy and Ebola, and I mean, it's just like real sick crap. Real
enemy of the people. Which
right.
there's a lot of people.
I really wish he would lose that term. It doesn't help anybody. It doesn't.
That's not the one. 16.
Now, in the national security realm, we've got all sorts of people, not only from Central America, but they're coming in from Africa, from the Middle East, and other places in this caravan. It's already been documented. It's already been noted by our people that are down there. Then public safety. We've already had people interviewed in this caravan and have already been deported from the United States for crimes such as attempted homicide. Now, these are prior deports that are coming in, and they will not come through the port of entry. They're going to come between the ports of entry, where it's the path of least resistance. Then public health. We have these individuals coming from all over the world that have some of the most extreme medical care in the world. And they're coming in with diseases such as smallpox and leprosy and TB that are going to affect our people in the United States.
Smallpox? Smallpox was where are they coming from? Are they coming from 1979? That's where they're coming from? Because we eradicated smallpox in 1979. Leprosy. Can you believe this? They're lepers. They're lepers. That's who's coming here, which, by the way, is extremely curable. It's a skin disease. Honestly, it's not just the one show, okay? It's all over the place.
It's a foreign invasion. So, yes, he can send the national military down to protect the border. I'm glad he's doing that. It's a strong stance. It must be taken because we simply cannot tolerate the continued invasion of this country when Americans are suffering every day. The national debt is exploding. We have diseases spreading across the country that are causing polio-like paralysis of our children. It's one thing after the
Well,
other.
Cindy, you can't very well blame that disease on illegal immigrants. We don't know the cause of it. I don't know that that's. I don't think that's fair. A lot of, but there are plenty of reasons to keep this country secure, including making sure that everyone is healthy when they're brought into the country.
This is sick shit. I mean, I don't even know what to say. We can't have them and the word invasion, this is the word now. The word is invasion. Trump started it. Laura Ingraham interviewed him last night. She asked him about the invasion. Every pundit, every spokesperson, every lunatic, right fringy person was on Fox News asserting everything from smallpox to leprosy to polio to paralysis to TB, you name it. And they are calling 3,500 people who will, by the way, surrender themselves. The minute they set foot on American soil, that is what they do. They surrender themselves to the Border Patrol agents and they ask for asylum. That is what happens. Nobody, tries to outrun them. Nobody tries to avoid them. Nobody tries to evade them. They want to look for the person from Border Patrol. They look for the green uniform. Why? Because they want to surrender to that person and make a claim of asylum. That is what goes on. And they call it an invasion.
The New York Times is saying the military, Mr. President, being called up by you is an election year play.
We're
Is
being
this
invaded.
politics or is this real?
When you look at that, thousands of people. Somebody said, now on that one they built it down. I'm pretty good at figuring out how many people. Thousands and thousands of people on the bridge. When you looked at that bridge loaded up with people, that's called an invasion of our country. This has nothing to do with elections. And I've been saying this long before election. I've been saying this before I ever thought of running for office. We have to have strong borders. If we don't have strong borders, we don't have a country.
He's sending a brigade-sized unit down to the military. He's deploying 5,200, which is a brigade-sized unit, down to the border. They will be armed. He's making a very big deal about sending an armed brigade down to the border. What's horrific about this? Number one, using the military to advance political aims in a midterm election is just vile. That is just disgusting. And as a vet, I swear to God, it makes me sick. Number two, the military cannot enforce laws on U.S. soil. They can't do it. So what you're doing is you're sending out a brigade-sized unit with weapons to do brush clearing or to, technical support or whatever. They can't, Number three, if something should go wrong, you are looking at a bloody, bloody confrontation at the border if something goes wrong. And because the soldiers do have the right of self-defense, they can't enforce any law by gunpoint, blah, blah, blah. That cannot, However, if you have a couple of bad apples in there, if you have a couple of nuts in there, if you have a couple, and everybody who's been in the military knows you're only as good as the weakest among you. You're only as strong as your weakest link. You have a weak link in there. You're supposed to pull them up and help them get up to snuff because that person can get you killed. Now, I've been saying that for years. That's classic liberalism. I learned it in the military. But I'm telling you right now that a weak person in this brigade who has some sort of a bad feeling or harbors ill will towards people of, different, starts something or claims self-defense and this thing could be a bloody mess, just an absolute mess. And this president is calling it an invasion, and everybody's on the TV calling it an invasion. And I tell you, this is just the sickest, most twisted thing. They're bringing disease and crime and polio and smallpox and blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, all this hatred has ratcheted up the weakest among us. Now, you can't say these people are crazy, because if they were crazy, then Bowers and Sayoc and all the other people, they would be able to plead insanity. But they can't, because they're not crazy. They're emboldened by this president who does nothing but tear us apart along religious, racial, economic, you name it. You name it. And now he's saying anchor babies. This is what he said, at a rally in September of 2015. He said, many of the great scholars say that anchor babies are not covered. And he's spreading this now, along with the diseases, along with the crime, along with there's Africans in there, there's and what land bridge did the Africans use to get to Honduras or Central America? How did they get to Central America? You see what I mean? This is crazy. This is evil. This is ugly. And he won't stop, to the point where Shepard Smith is trying. I don't know how he does it. I don't know how he goes there every single day. It was bad enough when I worked in between Rush Limbaugh and Sean Hannity, but I didn't have to see them every day, because I was sitting in West Palm Beach and Rush Limbaugh was doing the show out of his house, his mansion in Palm Beach, which, looks like a French gay man threw up all over the place. I mean, it's just, he has no, money can't buy you class. Thanks, Luann Telesebs. But honestly, so I didn't have to run into him. And in fact, there were a couple occasions when I was in New York using the New York studios, and his studio was behind mine, but his studio was always locked, and the blinds were always drawn. He doesn't like people, and he doesn't want to see people, and nobody's allowed to see him, which is great, because you never had to, he never darkened my door. You see what I mean? But I don't know how Shepard Smith goes into work every day knowing Hannity's in the green room getting hair and makeup. I mean, I honestly don't know how he does it. And they work across the street from the New York studio that I used to work in. Literally across the street.
Tomorrow, the migrants, according to Fox News reporting, are more than 2 months away, if any of them actually come here. But tomorrow is 1 week before the midterm election, which is what all of this is about. There is no invasion. No one's coming to get you. There's nothing at all to worry about. When they did this to us, got us all riled up in April, remember?
Yep.
The result was 14 arrests. We're America, we can handle it. But, like I said, a week to the election.
And then today he said,
President Trump says he plans to sign an executive order to end the right of citizenship for children born in the United States whose parents are not citizens and are undocumented immigrants. Of course, he can't do that. The reason? The Constitution. We'll get into that in a moment. First, here's what the president said to Axios for an HBO documentary series out this weekend.
Axios.
It was always told to me that you needed a constitutional amendment.
Right.
Guess
14th
what?
Amendment.
You don't.
You don't.
Number one, you don't need that. Number two,
I mean, that's in dispute.
You could definitely
That's very much in dispute.
Well, you can definitely do it with an act of Congress.
No.
But now they're saying I can do it just with an executive order.
Definitely no.
Now, how ridiculous. We're the only country in the world where a person comes in, has a baby, and the baby is essentially a citizen of the United States for 85 years with all of those benefits. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And it has to end.
Not the only country in the world.
No.
There are 30 of them,
right,
including Canada next door.
And Mexico.
Further, constitutional scholars say in the event the president actually tries this move, there would be an immediate injunction and his order would not ever take effect. Earlier today, the House Speaker Paul Ryan concurred, saying flatly to a radio station in Kentucky, the president obviously cannot end birthright citizenship with an executive order. Because, again, the Constitution.
Right.
Specifically, the 14th Amendment.
Right.
The Republican Senator Lindsey Graham has long pushed to change the Constitution on this matter, but that would require a 2/3 vote in the House of Representatives, plus a 2/3 vote in the U.S. Senate, and then ratification by 3/4 of the state's legislatures, and that is not under consideration.
Unbelievable. This man will do and say anything to tear our country apart, to tear us apart. 14th Amendment, in case you can't conjure it in your mind, it says all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof, meaning subject to the laws of the United States, are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. The 14th Amendment clearly says if you are born here, it determines your citizenship. Now, I will tell you that there is an old case from, I was listening to, my car broke down today on top of it, okay? This is not a good time for us at the Randi Rhodes Show. I know a lot of you have election fatigue, and we can see it, but I still have to pay the bills, and my car freaking broke down. So I had to listen to AM radio today in a rental car I had to rent to get to work. And I'm listening to Rush Limbaugh lie to his people, lie to them, saying that the president can undo the Constitution and he must. And Trump is the guy to do it. And this all has to end. And screw the Constitution. It's time. Oh, my God.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
Imagine, after a bomb was sent to CNN, the President of the United States goes and says, the press, the free press, is the enemies of the people. And then he says, the anger in the country is caused by the press who reports critically of him. What he is saying to the next sick person on the end of the transmission is, if you take an action, it's because they deserve it. What we are seeing, just as we saw young, displaced, evil, or sick, or just plain losers be radicalized by ISIS, we are seeing the same thing in the United States right now. These two losers, these two sick people, these two evil people, three evil people,
yes,
being radicalized by this right-wing propaganda industry. And that's exactly what it is. This whole caravan in the last week of the election is a giant lie. This is Trump's Reichstag fire.
Yeah.
It is a lie. And that the United States military, the most powerful armed force in the world, would be deployed at a brigade size unit level to the southern border to stop this caravan, which is 1,000 miles away and made up of women and children. The insinuations that it's filled with terrorists and Middle Easterners. 40% of the country has opted into an alternate reality. We have to wake up in this country and understand the danger that this presents to all of us. We can't put our heads in the sand. Kellyanne Conway despicably today goes on national television and she said, well, this shooter's motives were because there's an anti-religious sentiment. No, ma'am. The propaganda industry that she commands with the vile president that she serves, abetted by Mark Levin and Rush Limbaugh and Breitbart and Newsbusters and Judicial Watch and all the rest of them, have blood on their hands for the incitements that they have made that have triggered and radicalized these crazy people. It is deliberate in intent. He scapegoats minority populations. He alleges conspiracies. He creates a sense of shared and virtuous victimhood, positions himself as the avenger, and there is no cost too high so long as it benefits his narcissism, so long as it benefits him politically.
Politically. This is what I keep telling you. And the other reason is because in chaos, in a civil war-like setting, even if it's if it's a cold civil war, which is what Steve Schmidt, who ran the McCain campaign, as you know, is alleging that there is a cold civil war that is turning hot. Well, it seems to me that there is a hot civil war because people are shooting, people have been radicalized. Like I said, to say, oh, well, they're all crazy, it's just a crazy person. No. It's not insanity. It's radicalization. And the president is radicalizing. And he has been ever since he started saying violence was acceptable, that violence, he would pay for your legal fees, that he would defend you in court if you punch someone in the face or if you, whatever, a violent thing. And this, equating, yelling at Ted Cruz or yelling at Sarah Sanders, which might be embarrassing for Sarah Sanders and might be embarrassing to Ted Cruz, is not the same as shooting a gun and killing 11 people in a synagogue. It's not the same as sending pipe bombs through the mail. It's not the same as attempted murder. It's not the same as murder. It's not the same as assault. It's not the same as battery. It's not the same as touching another person in an unwelcome way. It isn't the same. And this equation, this moral equivalency, well, it happens on the right, it happens on the left. When Steve Scalise, when Gabby Giffords, nobody brings up Gabby Giffords, nobody brings up JFK, nobody brings up Martin Luther King Jr., nobody brings up Robert Kennedy, nobody brings up, the fact that a radicalized idiot in a parking lot shot her in the face. So you have, somebody who was, disappointed and angry that Bernie Sanders wasn't, and took a gun and terrorized Republicans who were, playing softball. That's one person. But the long list of black people unarmed, by uniformed police officers, people who are supposed to protect and defend, the long list of people who went into the Holocaust Museum with guns, went to the Comet Pizza Parlor with a gun, Dylan Roof, who went into a black church with a gun, this bomber, who had a van plastered with, CNN sucks and Trump and Hillary in the crosshairs, Sarah Palin putting Hillary in the crosshairs. Donald Trump saying Second Amendment protection. If Hillary picks judges, maybe people who have Second Amendment rights, telling the Secret Service that protects Hillary Clinton, maybe they should just drop their guns for a day and see what happens. We'll see what happens. You cannot do this moral equivalency thing because one person demonstrated the same lack of character and the same, ability to be radicalized by politics. But you've got an 87% increase in anti-Semitic activity. You've got people who are not even afraid anymore to say, I started a gang. They're called the Proud Boys. And what do? We kill people. Violence works. Try it. Choke a bitch. Choke a transgender person. I mean, this is radicalization, and it's happening in this country. And it's happening because the president is encouraging it and wants it to happen. Because in chaos, in absolute chaos, he can steal, and that is all he cares about. It's not just about winning an election. It's why he wants to win an election. He wants to win so he can take all the money and give it to people that are like him. All the money, all of it. Social Security is your trust fund. Medicare is your trust fund. It is completely supported by your tax dollars that come out of your paycheck. And if you're lucky to have an employer, they pay part of it too. If you're self-employed, you carry full freight. But that's your trust fund for your old age or for disability. And he wants it, and he's going to steal it. That is just a fact. And that is what this is about. Freddie in Los Angeles.
Hey, so my question for you is, you were talking about, could the U.S. absorb 3,000 that are incoming? The answer to that is absolutely yes. However, it opens up Pandora's box. One, you green light future groups of thousands. Not only that, but go back to the 90s till present day. How many people cumulative have come into the United States without essentially an invitation, right? So if you're going to be honest about this, then say the numbers, because they're huge, they're astronomical. At what point does our country hit critical mass?
Well, so America tried to do bipartisan immigration reform, as you know. We had the Gang of Eight in the Senate. That was, John McCain and Democrats and Chuck Schumer and all that. And they put together a package of comprehensive immigration reform with a path to citizenship for those who are already here. And when we had John Boehner as Speaker of the House, he wouldn't even introduce it in the House. He wouldn't even put it on the floor. And that's
Randy.
That's a sin. That is a sin. That's number one. Number two. Well, you asked me a question. Do you want the answer or no?
Yeah.
All right.
Yes.
You don't sound very open. Are you open?
I'm open.
All right. Down in Central America, a place where very few people here are familiar with, you have some of the most brutal governments. They are corrupt. Those elections are rigged. The OAS, the Organization of American States, has said this Honduran election was a dirty, dirty election, and it needed to be redone. Unless America leads down there, unless America actually goes and see, we did some investment in Mexico with NAFTA, which, a lot of people hated, but it made Mexico livable. And so you have very few Mexicans that are, doing this kind of, long trek to get here. But now it's coming from Central America. And unless and until America gets interested in bringing call centers or some sort of, jobs down there, or until America starts monitoring their elections and saying, oh, no, that was dirty. This guy is corrupt. We can't have him there. We're going to get this.
I totally agree with all of that. Where I think that you and I and all of your audience that's probably primarily in the United States of America, we all, for one way or another, we have to all come to the realization we're at critical mass because we look at everything that's going on, everything we're talking about with healthcare and all of that. So could we absorb more human beings? Yes, but systemically, look at all of our major urban areas right now and how they are just, the stress test is like failing in so many. We can't just take on an endless amount of people. At some point, sovereignty and borders do have to mean something.
So this is what I'm telling you. I mean, there are ways to protect, who's already here. And there are ways to improve your neighbor's lot in life so that they don't need to or want to or have to come here, because trust me, this is not anybody's first choice. They don't say, you know what I want to do is bundle up my family, carry what I can on my back, including my infant son, and take a chance walking 2,000 miles so that I can surrender myself to border security and try and make a claim for asylum. That is not anybody's first choice.
Yeah, that's a great point. The other thing that I would point out too is that, like, if you and I were going to migrate south because the United States was just like the wheels came off, right?
Right.
So we find out that the grass is greener down below the equator. I doubt that you and I are going to carry the stars and stripes across through the trek, right? So the people that are coming up, it would be, you're coming up, you're going to knock on the door, please let me in. Okay, fine. By the way, I'm marching up here with my flag. These are the things, and the
flag?
people that are running.
Tell me what
you haven't seen any imagery of all the people carrying Honduran flags.
No,
I
haven't seen that.
I mean,
not one.
And it's like,
no, not one.
Well,
I see them carrying their babies. I see them carrying backpacks.
Too.
I see them sleeping on the hot street. But I haven't seen
that.
anybody with a flag. But I will tell you this. I lived down in Central America for a little while, and on the 4th of July, I flew an American flag, and nobody seemed to give a damn.
Well, was that Belize or Costa Rica?
Costa Rica.
Yeah, no doubt. That's like the 52nd state.
It's Central America. It's the neighbor of Honduras and El Salvador.
No, I know, but Costa Rican is like so friendly.
Well,
to us.
why?
It's great,
Why do you
great
think?
place.
Why is
Yeah.
it? Why is that?
Yeah.
Why? No. Why is it?
Right.
Why is it friendly? Why is it open like that? Why?
Oh well, because we go
they
down there.
have
It's beautiful.
clean government. That's why, and they don't have a military. That's why. They don't spend anything on a military. They have a Coast Guard. That's it, to protect themselves from drug smugglers. Other than that, they have no military, and they haven't had one since 1948. And they do that so that America will stay out of their business. They do that so America can't say, we need to occupy Salvador, or we need to occupy Nicaragua, we need to fight the Sandinistas, we need to fight these left wing. They don't have a military so that people will leave them alone. They're like the Switzerland of Central America, and their people, instead of spending money on all this military gear, they get national health care. They get free education all the way through, as far as they want to go in college, as far as they want to go. You want to be a doctor? Fine, go all the way. You want to be a mechanic? Fine, go to this school. That's why Costa Rica is different. They choose not to spend their money on hardware, and they've created an economy. A decent economy. That's what has to happen. And they would love to see their neighbors do it, because don't think that these people aren't going into Costa Rica also. Nicaraguans are pouring into Costa Rica.
We may have reached the ugliest chapter yet in Trump's allies' war on justice. NBC News has learned about an alleged plot to smear special counsel Robert Mueller with false sexual assault accusations. Our own Tom Winter reports, quote, multiple reporters were contacted over the past few weeks about a woman who said she had been offered money to say she was sexually assaulted by Mueller. The reporters each independently determined the assault allegations were a hoax, and that the woman appeared to have been offered a significant amount of money to make that claim. The bizarre plot began to unravel around the same time fringe conservative Jack Berkman began ranting on Facebook that he is investigating sexual misconduct and alcohol-related allegations against Mueller. The notoriously media-averse special counsel's office released a rare statement saying, quote, when we learned last week of allegations that women were offered money to make false claims about the special counsel, we immediately referred the matter to the FBI for investigation.
Conservatism is a racket.
It is. It really is. It's just so unbelievable. Happy Halloween, everybody. Happy. I think I'll go as a woman. So I can scare all the little boys, right? All the little boys. Oh, be very scared of the women. The women. This is Revenge of the Kavanaugh here. You know, is what this Mueller. We'll get into this caper. I got to tell you, this caper. A van full of sugar high kids could have busted out this caper. This was so sloppy. This was so stupid. It was so Republican is what it was. But I got to tell you, I love Halloween. If you go to my Instagram page, you'll see my jack-o'-lantern. I thought he came out awesome this year. Just incredible. I did several. I did Disco Pumpkin. I did, Sinister Jack, Evil Jack, and I made Jack eat another pumpkin. So a big pumpkin eating little pumpkin. It's very scary, and I'm very scared this Halloween. I'm very scared. It's just a scary time, is what it is. And my neighbor across the street. I'll take pictures and post them on Instagram tonight. But my neighbor across the street, Laura, as some of you know who've been listening, this is her favorite holiday. She goes all out. She makes the graveyard. She's got a crib, a baby crib, a giant ass baby crib in her yard next to the cemetery that she builds from scratch with her own little tiny Texas hands. She's into that Chainsaw Massacre thing, and this year she's into a lot of dead baby stuff. And all I could think, when I look at it, it just creeps me out, because all I could think of is the old dead baby jokes. Remember them? Like, what's more horrifying than a dead baby at the bottom of a pile? Dead babies in a pile, the live one at the bottom eating its way to the top, like that. And she loves dead babies this year. She actually left one on my porch. Oh, my God. She made a dead baby. She put blood on. Oh, it's just, and she's a Texan, so it has nothing to do with abortion, I don't think. I never really asked her. But even she's like depressed this Halloween. Because Trump has ruined the color orange. Orange is the new white, and it's just not the same. He's ruined this holiday for so many of us that actually embrace. I mean, look at him. He looks like a deformed pumpkin with like, I don't know, like some ratty corn silk stuck on his head and sprayed into place. You can't even say trick or treat this year because everything he does is a trick. If you get a treat from Donald Trump, have it x-rayed, everybody. Have it x-rayed. Because nothing that this man offers is, safe or real. Tax cuts, they come off of you're going to pay for those. So his rich friends could get, $720 billion. You're going to pay for those. I mean, it's just so unbelievable. Everything is like a trick. Everything about him is a trick. This thing with the caravan is a trick. This thing with sending out the military to the border is a trick. The wall in Mexico, will pay for it, was a trick. Raises for everybody, that was a trick. That was a one-time bonus. About $72 billion was spent on that one-time bonus, right? But $720 billion of what we now have to pay for was spent on stock buybacks. And that's not a bad, that's not a good purchase. It's not worth anything. Because look, when the stock market has a few bad days, for whatever reason, all the gains wiped out for the year. So, I mean, what person who's middle class would say, this is what I want to invest in. I want to give rich people money so they could throw it around, and then one bad day, and we're back to square one. I mean, who would do that? No one. It's a trick. Everything is a trick. Where's the infrastructure? It's a trick. Everything about him is a freaking trick. And now he's throwing every trick that he knows at every single body with less than a week to go. Less than a week, everybody. 5 days, 14 hours, and 52 minutes, and 34 seconds. Till the blue wave. Oh, my God. So he's ruined Halloween for, me. He's ruined Halloween. I just, I think Jack is awesome. I really do. He came out really, really. I had to make two because I didn't want to tell. Howard smashed my first one. Right? Mm-hmm. And it wasn't that he smashed it because, I guess that happens when you have giant feet. And because that's what they say, right? Big feet. You smash pumpkins, apparently, right? No, he said I put it too close to the front door. And when he opened the door, he smashed into the pumpkin. And it was beautiful. And just, and I had a candle in it, learned my lesson. Bought the pumpkin candles from Amazon and put them in there this time. But the candle, so the whole thing, and the candle went bloop, and wax all over, and he left it there. What's wrong with you men?
He's a jackass.
Oh, yeah, but I love that jackass. I love that jackass. Ma'am, would you like to press charges? No, I love that jackass. So I had to make another one, so I made another one, and this one's it's really pretty freaking awesome. But I'm just not in the mood. I'm not in the mood for anything except to, and I don't early vote. I just want you to know, I mean, I'll tell you to do it. I don't like the mail-in. It's just not for me. I don't like the early. I like to go on the day. I want to see who shows up. I want to see the lines. I want to, work on it right up until the last minute and see if anybody that I, nudged or anybody, like I told you, the Uber driver, my car broke down, so I've been Ubering. And then I had to go rent a car. So now I'm in a rental car, but I'm talking to everybody at the rental place. I'm talking to the guy that drove me from Enterprise, and I'm asking him, did he vote? Not yet. So, I keep nudging, and I'm just like, in Publix, I'm scared. This is a crazy place. And this is what I'm telling people who are friendly to the conversation. I'm telling them, don't do what I'm doing, which is right. Don't person to person start a political conversation because I can see you're unarmed. And it's just not safe. I keep telling them white people are crazy. Be very, very, very conscious of this fact. They're all ginned up. They're all, packing. They're dangerous. And even at the Publix deli counter, I don't get into conversations with people. I just don't. But what I do is I will wear, like Randi Rhodes, I will wear my T-shirt. And, because here everybody knows the show because I broadcast here since, 1992. You know what I mean? So here, everybody sees that name and they go, oh my God, oh my God. You know, and maybe if they're friendly, you know, I'll tell them, did you vote, did you vote? But a lot of people get very heated. They get very argumentative. They get very in your face. I told Howard, do not have conversations at the deli counter. Just don't do it. And I mean, when you can't, this is the state that we're in. And these are middle-aged people buying their deli meats. Okay, these are not children. Now, I will tell you this. My neighborhood, my gated community, and I do live in a gated community. It's a huge gated community, and it's very integrated, my gated community. It's not like, fancy schmancy. It's, very, very mixed. I like that neighborhood. I chose that neighborhood. I built this business in another neighborhood that was completely Haitian. I love it here. I like the people here, everything. But all of a sudden, my neighborhood, the homeowners association sent out an email yesterday to everybody there, and there's thousands of houses there, saying that there was a threat on Halloween in our neighborhood. Isn't that fun? Isn't that fun, everybody? And it turns out it's like something happened in the high school. I don't know what. They won't tell us. They keep saying, they say, don't call us, call the police, call the sheriff's office, or call the state troopers, or call, just don't call us, because we're telling you all that we're going to tell you. So don't call us. Don't call the homeowners. Do you know what I mean? It's like so, and the whole thing. And I gotta tell you, I mean, this all came because. Not because, and people saying, like I was reading, I think it's Frank Bruni. He's got a column today saying that the internet will be the death of us. And then I was talking to Scott this morning, and I was explaining, because Scott also, saw the Homeowners Association warning, because Howard shared it with him. And, he was saying, oh, well, and it seems to have come from the high school nearby. And it seems to be online because they said that they had called, the police had involved the sheriff's cyber threat division. So it seems like somebody in high school was, either bullying or threatening or something horrible, another student, and said something about on Halloween, be careful. I don't know. I honestly don't know. But so I got into this conversation with Scott today, who's, obviously younger than me. I mean, he grew up, and Brett too. They grew up, in my house. I was the adult, and they were the, high school students. They were the kids. And he's saying, oh, well, I really do think it's the internet and I, Frank Bruni wrote that too, saying that the internet's going to be the death of us. And then we found out about this ridiculous, place for the lepers, the real lepers, not that there are no lepers coming over the border. The lepers, the people who need to be ostracized, the people who need to be put on their own little island. The people who need to be, have their own little Pacific island away and apart from everybody else. They are not kids. They are not children. They are middle-aged white people. They are, the people that have done all this violence, the people that have, perpetrated everything from the Kroger shooting in Kentucky to the killing of 11 Jews and wounding, 6 more, 4 police officers, 2 critically, the guy with the van and the pipe bombs, all white, middle-aged men. I mean, this is really where the violence is coming from. And I don't, yes, we found out that the lepers who need to be on their own island are white middle-aged men who got kicked off Twitter and got kicked off Facebook and can't comport themselves with any sense of decency. Aren't interested in debating or arguing. They're interested in threatening and name calling. They're not kids. They're not the kids. They're middle-aged, disgruntled, disappointed, grievance-bearing white men who have bought into years of leadership in this country that has done everything to exploit their lot in life by telling them who to blame for it, instead of saying, oh, the tax cuts for the wealthy, the redistribution of wealth that's been going on in this country, we've been doing it since the 80s, and you keep falling for it, so we're going to take out that playbook and do it again and again and again, as long as you keep voting for us. You know, Ronald Reagan started his campaign in Philadelphia, Mississippi. That was a racist dog whistle. Ronald Reagan, I mean, the ads that they used to run, you know, they would have the white hands, and the white hands would be, like looking at his job application, and it would have a reject sign on it, and he would crumple it up, the white working man's hands. And, then they would flash like a black face and just say, are you for or against affirmative action? And this has been going on for a long time. And that's why the 50-somethings are so ripe. They're so ready to die. And they want to take you with them. They're ready to go. I don't think it's the kids, although I will say perhaps this Halloween thing had to do with bullying, which is another thing. But then I look and I see most of the millennials, most of the young kids, most of them have no intention of voting. So I can't see how Twitter and Facebook are radicalizing our kids as much as radicalizing middle-aged white guys. And that is what these middle-aged white guys did to Robert Mueller, okay? They tried to play, it was like Kavanaugh's revenge, let's call it. I'll explain.
All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
Okay, everybody, meet Jack Berkman.
Thursday will be a sad, but hopefully very hopeful day. On Thursday, high noon, at the Holiday Inn right here in Arlington, Virginia, right behind me, only about 1,000 yards that way, we will unveil the first of the sex assault victims of Robert Mueller. It turns out, as many of you know, Robert Mueller is a bad guy, not just because of what he does in the courtroom, but because of what he does outside of the courtroom. Robert Mueller has done bad things to a number of women, the first of whom is coming out this Thursday, high noon. She will unveil a very bad sexual assault, and more to come. We've interviewed many. The investigation is ongoing. This isn't something I take any delight in. It's something I wish I didn't have to do, but my viewers and the American people need the truth.
That is Jack Berkman. Jack Berkman is a lobbyist. And Jack Berkman is a notorious conspiracy theorist. Jack Berkman is the person who really, really promoted the Seth Rich conspiracy theory. He's the one that said that the DEA, and other government agencies actually killed Seth Rich because Seth Rich was the leaker of the DNC documents. This was a conspiracy theory that blew up in Jack Berkman's face. He had some sort of he did the same thing that he's doing there. Oh, on Thursday, everybody meet me at the Holiday Inn in Virginia, and I will have a witness to the killing, or I will have somebody that can confirm that Seth Rich. And he invited all the media and all these right-wing talk show hosts and everybody else to come. And it's just the person on the phone was fumfering, and he didn't have the person in person. Because he said the person couldn't come in person because they would be in danger. They would be in danger. They're being hunted and they will be killed and blah, blah, blah. So at this presser where he claimed to have this whistleblower who would come forward and would expose the DNC and their involvement in their own staffer's death, the whistleblower never showed up. Then he said, well, they're going to come and they're going to phone in. So everybody gather around this speakerphone. And everybody waited and everybody waited. And he couldn't make the phone work. He couldn't make the phone work. And the phone kept feeding to somebody else's message machine and on, and it was a shit show is what it was. It was a complete and utter shit show. And then finally, when the person came on the phone, the person was, telling, oh, there were two people. There were two people that killed her. No, maybe it was three. I mean, the person was so confused, so like I said, kids on a sugar high tonight from a van that pour out to, get candy. They could have busted this caper, okay? And now Berkman is back, okay? And what happened here is he joined forces with this kid named Jacob Wall. Jacob Wall is probably the dumbest kid that's ever come down the pike. Jacob Wall is a kid who set up a fake private investigation company called Surefire Intelligence. They advertised that they were founded by two members of Israel's elite intelligence community who can be hired as counterintelligence, private spies, ethical hackers. And per their website, Surefire has locations in California, New York, Tel Aviv, Washington, D.C., and other notable cities around the world. But if you, when the media started dialing the firm's phone numbers, they also got redirected to a line to Orange County, California, and apparently to Wall, this kid Wall, Jacob Wall, to his mother. To his mother. And then the media got curious and they started looking at the company. And the private investigator company has pictures of people who work at the company. And one of the PIs that he lists as, being under his employ, this is a teenage kid, right? One of the PIs that he lists as being under his employ is a British model photographer named Nick Hopper. And another one is Christopher Waltz, the actor. And I mean, this is just so unbelievable. This is just this is a greasy little 20-year-old doofus who pops up all over Donald Trump's Twitter feed. Every time Donald Trump tweets, this kid, Jacob Wall, retweets Donald Trump or puts a comment or blah, blah. And him and this Berkman dude Berkman was responsible for the Seth Rich shit show conference call that, redirected to, I believe it was Jacob Wall's mother, his mother's phone. And he started to tell the media, and, that was from his Facebook feed that I played you, that tomorrow, Thursday, there's going to be a big announcement. Everybody should meet at the Virginia, at this Virginia Holiday Inn, because he is going to produce women who say that in the 70s or some crap, that Robert Mueller, the special counsel Robert Mueller, was a drunk and a rapist. This is Kavanaugh. This is revenge for Kavanaugh, Because women came forward and produced a list of 8 witnesses that the FBI refused to interview. In fact, the FBI refused to interview Christine Blasey Ford, who has had enough, okay? She has had enough. She has absolutely no interest. She tried her best. She gave it her best shot. She swore under oath. She gave her testimony. She gave a list of 8 witnesses, and the FBI refused to investigate those people. You had another woman, Julie Swetnick, who gave a list of 10 witnesses. You had Chuck Grassley, the Judiciary Committee in the Senate, the Senate Judiciary Committee chairman, say that he was going to investigate Michael Avenatti because Julie Swetnick had hired him, and she was obviously lying to destroy Brett Kavanaugh's life. And this is, by the way, the talking point on right-wing radio. How do I know this? Because I told you I rented a car and it only has an AM radio, and I'm forced to listen to freaking Rush Limbaugh, so I listened to him again today. What do you think he's talking about today? He's talking about don't give up on, if the Democrats really had anything on Kavanaugh, they'd be pounding down the fences now. They'd be screaming about Kavanaugh. No. They don't have subpoena power. They're in the minority. They don't have, the Judiciary Committee. They don't have, any ability to subpoena anybody. And Grassley over in the Senate has decided that he's going to subpoena, or he's going to talk to Michael Avenatti, right? And Michael Avenatti is like, oh, it's Christmas in October. Let's do it. Let's start tonight. I got Julie Swetnick you could talk to also. Why don't you talk to her also? Because you never did. And she's got 10 names, and you really need to, speak to them. So when this thing happened yesterday, it happened late in the day, I didn't see it till after the show was over. I realized, oh my God, this is Kavanaugh's revenge. They're going to now say, well, you see, if we have women from the 70s, 30 years ago, saying that Mueller was a drunk and a rapist back then, you have to believe the women. That is not what anybody said. They said that the women were credible. The women were believable. Why? Because idiot boy Kavanaugh kept calendars. And the dates that the time period that she went to school with him, the time period that this house party had, he had it on his calendar. Now, these idiots, Mad Magazine is more sophisticated. Spy versus Spy comes up with better capers. Scooby-Doo comes up with better capers than this. Honest, if you pitched this to Adam Sandler as a spoof movie, he'd say, oh, no. Even Adam Sandler. Okay. But they said they have this whistleblower. Well, the whistleblower turns out to be a woman who doesn't exist, but she has a name. Apparently her name is Lorraine Parsons. I'm trying to figure out if she's real or not. I don't know. But she told the investigators, that because Robert Mueller hadn't said anything about any of this, and then when it became, something that was, being put out on Facebook, etc., Mueller sent it over to the FBI to investigate these people. And Lorraine Parsons is supposedly the woman, and she says, oh, well, they offered me $20,000 to lie and say that Robert Mueller did this to me. Yeah. That's what she said. She said that Lorraine Parsons said that this guy Berkman pushed her to, quote, and I don't know if she's real or not, pushed her to, quote, make accusations of sexual misconduct and workplace harassment against Robert Mueller, to sign a sworn affidavit, and he offered tens of thousands of dollars for her help. Now, GQ is reporting on Jacob Wall, and they're saying that it's $20,000. I think it's GQ that reported $20,000 was what was offered for anybody that would lie about Robert Mueller. Any woman who would come forward and lie about Robert Mueller could get $20,000. This is the lowest of the low. This is so bad. Nobody paid any of these women. Nobody paid anybody. You know who pays women and why they pay women? Donald Trump. He pays women. And you know why he pays women? To shut the F up. That's what he pays women for. Paid Stormy Daniels. He paid this other one who was in love with him. That Playboy model had no taste whatsoever. Beautiful girl, no taste. Just amazing. But she said, I love that man. He smashed my pumpkin. But I love him. You know what I mean? And so I just, and now you've got this crazy plot with Jacob Wall and his own parents. His own parents. And when he put up this Surefire website, he listed the owner of Surefire as a guy named Matthew Cohen. And put a picture up of Matthew Cohen. And the picture of Matthew Cohen is Jacob Wall. It's him. It's this idiot, greasy little kid. It's this doofus. Now, he is a disgraced, I swear to God, hedge fund genius, he says he is. And he started posting about these tantalizing stories that were going to... Now, let me tell you why I think this is happening now. Oh, yes, it's Kavanaugh's revenge. There's no doubt about it. But it's deeper than that. I think just from reading federal prosecutors, from reading Politico, from reading people that are following this Mueller case as closely as humanly possible, people who have been literally sitting inside the clerk's office of Judge Beryl Howell, who have been sitting in there just to try and see who's coming and going, and trying to follow, what's being filed and what's being acted on in an expeditious way, what's being fast-tracked, et cetera, et cetera. It seems like, and I'm going to read this to you on the other side of the break, but it seems like Robert Mueller has subpoenaed Donald Trump and is trying to haul his ass in front of the grand jury, a la Ken Starr 1998. And it seems to me and others that Mueller has already been in court trying to serve the president with a subpoena, and that Trump's lawyers were asking the court to deny the issuance of a subpoena based on the fact that he's Donald Trump, president of the United States. And the court, it seems like, rejected their argument. And it seems like they appealed it. And it seems like they lost on appeal as well. And it seems like Mueller may be hauling Donald Trump in right after the election. Well, it won't be right after the election. There is actually a date for an appearance. We don't know who this witness is, but something is going on with a very important witness in the Mueller case.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
All right, so let's just, look at whether or not it's possible that Mueller subpoenaed the president. This is really the most succinct article, I think, that I've seen. It's in Politico. It's written by Nelson Cunningham. Nelson Cunningham was a federal prosecutor in the Southern District of New York under Rudy Giuliani. He was also the general counsel of the Senate Judiciary Committee under the chairmanship of Joe Biden, and he was a general counsel of the White House Office of Administration under Bill Clinton. Suffice it to say, he's a lawyer, a government one, and he knows how this whole thing works. All right. And he's citing the careful reporting by Politico, okay? And he's saying that he has been watching and analyzing the careful reporting from Politico from his perspective as a former prosecutor and a former general counsel in the Senate and a former White House Office of Administration counsel, okay? And he says, as a former prosecutor and Senate and White House aide, I predicted here last May that Mueller would promptly subpoena Trump. And like independent counsel Ken Starr back in 1998, bring a sitting president before his grand jury to round out and conclude his investigation. What Trump knew, when he knew it, what exactly motivated his statements and actions, because the firing of James Comey, obviously there are crazy statements all over the place, right? You have the president asking Rod Rosenstein to write a letter that trashes Comey's announcement about closing and then reopening the Hillary Clinton email investigation. And of course, James Comey didn't make an announcement that he was opening the Hillary Clinton or reopening. He sent a letter to Congress, which promptly leaked. You can thank Devin Nunes for that. But anyway, he's saying, that when Trump sat, and I said this for so long, that the Lester Holt interview was pure kryptonite when he said, it was I was going to fire him no matter what Rosenstein wrote. I was going to fire him because this Russia thing, right? And so that's the obstruction part. And then the part about lying about Junior's meeting, Trump Tower, and who was there, and Trump, dictating a letter and denying that they were there to get dirt on Hillary Clinton. I mean, the whole thing. And then, having to issue a second one and a third one. So you have only the president who can tell you what's behind all those statements that he made, right? The intent is in Donald Trump's head, and we know obstruction is a crime of intent. All right, I digress. Anyway, he said as the summer proceeded, we certainly had a great deal from Rudy Giuliani, And we did. Rudy Giuliani was all over the TV. He was, saying, yeah, the president lies, but that has nothing to do with the And then finally, on August 15th, Giuliani went on TV, and he said that Trump would move to quash a subpoena. And he went so far as to say on TV, quote, "We're pretty much finished with our memorandum opposing a subpoena," right? And then nothing happened. And then Labor Day came and went, and there wasn't anything that was visible that you could see Mueller doing. It was the quiet period before the midterms. And I have said this a million times. I really don't understand why there's a quiet period before the midterms. If the president or a candidate for president or a candidate for Congress or a candidate for is a criminal or is a traitor to this nation or is taking orders from a foreign government, this goes to the birthright citizenship question too. Okay, somebody that doesn't believe that they are subject to the jurisdiction of the laws of the United States, which apparently Trump doesn't think he is. Should they be citizens of the United States? Anyway, so we entered this quiet time. We don't get to know whether or not the president did these things ahead of a midterm election that he's made all about him. He's told his people wherever he went, wherever he campaigned, I know I'm not on the ballot, but pretend I am. But it's the quiet period, everybody. The quiet period. So we have absolutely nothing from anybody on this investigation. But Politico's reporting, this is what Mr. Cunningham, Nelson Cunningham, is citing. He says, but now, thanks to Politico's reporting, backed up by the simple gumshoe move of sitting in the clerk's office, waiting to see who walks in and requests what files, we might know what Mueller has been up to. Since mid-August, he may have been locked in proceedings with Trump and his lawyers over a grand jury subpoena in secret litigation that could tell us by December, and I'll tell you why December at the end, when the president will testify before Mueller's grand jury. The evidence lies in obscure docket entries at the clerk's office for the D.C. Circuit. That's where Kavanaugh came from. Thanks to Politico's Josh Gerstein and Darren Samuelson, we know that on August 16th, the day after Giuliani said he was almost finished with his memorandum to quash the subpoena, a sealed grand jury case was initiated in the D.C. Federal District Court before Chief Judge Beryl Howell. We know that on September 19th, Howell issued a ruling. And 5 days later, one of the parties appealed to the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals. And thanks to Politico's reporting, we know that the special counsel's office is involved because the reporter overheard a conversation in the clerk's office. So now we can further deduce that the special counsel prevailed, won in the district court, and that the presumptive grand jury witness has frantically appealed that order and is looking for special treatment from the judges of the D.C. court, which we often refer to as the second most important court in the land. Why? Because that's the pipeline of the Supreme Court, right? Merrick Garland, who didn't get even an interview with any of the senators, let alone a real hearing, he is the Chief Justice of the D.C. Circuit, right? And we know Kavanaugh came from there, and we know Gorsuch came from there. Okay. But nothing about the docket sheets disclosed the identity of this witness, so we don't know who. Politico asked many of the known attorneys for Mueller's witnesses, including Jay Sekulow and others, and each one denied knowledge of the identity of the witness. But of course, you would expect a lawyer to say that when the order is sealed in front of the court. But Mr. Cunningham goes on and he said, but those of us who have been appellate lawyers, the brief docket entries tell a story. Here's what he thinks the story is saying. He thinks that the parties and the judges have moved very quickly because parties have normally 30 days to appeal the lower court's action or decision. The witnesses here appealed 5 days after they lost in district court. 3 days later, filed a motion before the appellate court asking for a stay on the district court's order. That's very fast. The appeals court itself responded very, very, very speedily too. 1 day after they got the witness's motion, the court gave the special counsel 3 days to respond, which is very, 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 very short. The special counsel answered on October 1st, and at this point, an unspecified procedural flaw seems to have emerged, and on October 3rd, the appeals court dismissed the appeal. 2 days later, the lower court fixed the flaw. They call it curing. They fixed the flaw. The witness, whoever this is a very special witness, reappealed, and then by October 10th, the witness was again in front of the appellate court, and the judges acted very quickly. Less than a week later, they were back before the D.C. court. On October 10th, the day the case returned to the D.C. court, the parties filed a motion for an expedited handling, and within 2 days, the judges granted that expedited, motion, and they set up a very accelerated briefing schedule. The witness, and we don't know who it is, but we think, or the conclusion here is that the witness is so important that it must be the President of the United States, because the witness was given only 11 days to file briefs. The special counsel was given 2 weeks to respond, and reply papers 1 week later were delivered on November 14th. That's 8 days after. They will file on November 14th, 8 days after the midterm elections. And then oral arguments are scheduled for December 14th. And that's why they're saying we'll know in December. What this is showing is that whoever this witness is, this isn't an ordinary witness. And whatever the issue is no ordinary issue. The court is both the courts, the lower court and the appeals court, are moving so freaking fast. The witness who lost in the lower court is asking the appeals court to take the case really, really, really quickly. And a day later, the court gives 3 days to Mueller to respond, right? And then they say, okay, and while we're waiting for you to respond, appeals court, we want the lower court's decision stayed, meaning they can't issue whatever it is that they lost on. And it's probably a subpoena to appear before the grand jury. Anyway, is this the president? We just don't know. But the docket sheet gives one final clue. When this witness, who has to be uber important for the courts to move like this, the courts do not move fast. God knows. I've been sued so many times, and I'm telling you anything, and when I win, the loser appeals, and that's another year. You're talking about days here. You're talking about days, moving in days, and asking for a stay of the lower court, and getting it right away, and then, it's just so fast. All right. So when the witness is lost in the lower court, in the circuit court, before they went to the appeals court, or after the appeals court was contacted days later, right? Days later, 5 days later, after they lost in district court, they asked, not for the, usually in appeals court, you get 3 judges, you get a 3-judge panel, right? They asked for an en banc, meaning they wanted all 10 of the D.C. Circuit judges to review this order from the lower court. They wanted all 10. They didn't want, the 3 judges. They wanted an en banc hearing. They wanted all 10 judges to show up. And what's really telling is that of the 10 judges that sit on the D.C. Circuit, only 1 judge has recused himself. The other 9 judges on the D.C. Circuit have no problem hearing this case. But 1 judge, Gregory Katsas, recused himself. Who is Gregory Katsas, and why did he recuse himself? He is Trump's only appointee to the D.C. Circuit. Now, Kavanaugh came from the D.C. Circuit. Gorsuch came from the D.C. Circuit. Merrick Garland is the Chief Justice of the D.C. But Trump has put on the D.C. Circuit only one judge, and that judge is Gregory Castas. And we don't know exactly why he recused himself because they don't have to tell you. But if the witness in question here was the president himself, then this justice or this judge who was appointed by Donald Trump would probably recuse himself from any official role in deciding a case that had to do with Donald Trump. So that's the last clue. And the fact that all of this happened one day after Giuliani said publicly, quote, "We're pretty much finished with our memorandum opposing a subpoena." Now, all we know is that the district court ruled in favor of Robert Mueller against some witnesses' issue, which was likely an issue to appear before the grand jury. And that losing witness moved very quickly and with incredible authority to to get these judges to respond to them in an accelerated fashion and to schedule briefings and all this, and that the sole Trump appointee to that circuit court, to the D.C. Circuit, recused himself. Other than that, it's a sealed legal matter, and we won't know till after the elections. All we can tell you is that oral arguments will be made in front of the appeals court, minus this one judge who recused himself. And then an oral argument is scheduled in December. So this could explain the attack. They've been trying to destroy Robert Mueller 8 ways to Sunday. They've been saying he's conflicted and, throwing everything. And none of it is moving anybody, because even the people who are saying this crap about Mueller, they know Robert Mueller, and they know, Robert Mueller is not a drunk, he's not a rapist, and he has an impeccable reputation. He does everything by the book, and we've had no leaks out of his office, but it does appear that this is a very special witness that Mueller has subpoenaed. And this witness has lost their case.